Hi, this is John Davidson, the VIP coach, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you today. You know, I've been coaching entrepreneurs for the last 18 years, almost going on 19 years. And with over 22,000 coaching sessions behind me, I've come across some pretty interesting cases. I've seen most of what's out there, from small business to medium to large business, and have become very familiar with some of the biggest challenges facing the entrepreneurs and the best business leaders today. And of course, one of those challenges, probably the biggest challenge of all, is trying to get everything done. How to stay organized in a crazy, busy habitat that you as the leader and the entrepreneur, you're besieged, you're under siege by so many things coming at you all at one time. So you go into a day, a week, a month, and you have a plan, and you have a goal, and you have specific steps, and your intentions are set, and it's super sharp. You go into the situation, you've got your best efforts on. But things don't always play out the way that you expected. You set a goal, and then life sort of has a way of creating life. Suddenly, parachute tasks drop in. People depend on you for things. Suddenly, someone gets upset with you. There are momentary shifts and changes. It almost seems like context in which we're operating is always in motion. And so oftentimes we feel like, well, why should I even set an intention? We throw our arms up and say, why should I? Should I even set a business plan? Should I even have a life plan if so many things are going to go wrong? Why should I even put the effort in? And this is when things start to really roll downhill, as we pull back all of our efforts and we go into a zone of powerlessness and helplessness and frustration and confusion, where we sort of lower our standards, we compromise and kind of fold up and go home. And we sort of just say, well, I'll just sort of cruise and get along with the way it is. I'll go with the flow. I'll just lay down and just go with this thing. You know, you feel kind of like domesticated, as if you're just shut down. Like your weapons have been dismantled. You're a disarmed bomb. And how many of us really feel that way? That life seems to be like a tsunami that's just got us, we've got the bull by the tail. And so what I've intended to explore is how you, the leader, actually contributes to this existence. Yeah. That it's not going to help you get any better by looking elsewhere to blame or to try to justify what's going on by feeling like everything is so out of control. I don't believe that's true, and I do think there are things that you can do. There are some changes to your thinking, some changes to your behavior, some changes to the underlying structures, which we'll get into, that will give rise to a very different way of going into things, a different way of existing in the world, instead of existing in a reactive way. But perhaps the invitation is more of a creative orientation rather than a reactive orientation. And you might not be aware of two different types of orientations. One orientation is a very reactive orientation, and the underlying thrust is circumstances signal, organize your choices. Signal, organize what you do. So it's a little bit like if you think of it like a rat in a maze, you're going to be organized by, pushed around by, whatever circumstances are precipitating. And you see, a lot of us, what we're doing, without knowing it, is we're trying to come up with better responses to those prevailing things. So we change our attitude. We're trying to change how we can react to the inevitable, but maybe react better, react wiser, react in ways that are less stressful. But when you really look at it, all we're really doing is reacting and responding. There's another orientation, though, that a lot of us don't learn, we don't get, because we were never taught this. This is something that no one modeled for us. And not a lot of people on the planet operate from this orientation. Probably about 5% of individuals do. Most of the entrepreneurs just know this. They don't know another way, is they live in a very different orientation. They live in a creative orientation. And in the creative orientation, the movement or the predominant organization of action does not precipitate from the circumstances, rather, precipitate from you, from your choices. And this gives you almost how could I describe it? Almost like a too good to be true creative freedom. I'm always amazed when the entrepreneur suddenly realizes that it wasn't really the circumstances all along. I mean, it's not how much they have to do or how busy their world is, because we're all busy. We all have stuff to do, and we like having stuff to do. It keeps us busy. It keeps us involved. It keeps us challenged. We learn new things, and it puts us into new gears and so forth. That's all good. That's all good. But what they realize is that the way their orientation is set up is underlying it all. They're just bound to react and respond. And when they realize that they actually have a fundamental choice in this, to become the predominant creative force in their life, everything forward it's like a major shift of mind. It's almost so easy it's hard. We tend to overlook it. And so we have so many other things that are actually at play that it's almost like it's just too weird that it's not so cathartic that we choose that. And we realize all along that a lot of it is really us, because we get ourselves overwhelmed for so many reasons. We are sabotagers that get in our own way just based on the way that we tend to construct reality. And what I'm saying is that we all have a place in us, a database, that we draw from to relate with the life that's here. And we live inside our mental construction automatically. For example, I found that I had a coaching client who is in the media business, and he was in this perpetual cycle of getting ready to get 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 ready. He wanted to become an owner, but he was caught in this perpetual hamster wheel of always being under the gun, trying to get things done. And after looking at it together, his mind was telling him, well, I'll just do this. I'll just get this done. Well, I'll just do this. And I call it kicking the can down the road. So he's got two lists. He's got the list of things that just have to get done, and then he's got this other list of things that have to get done. And one of them's the list that is sitting in the moment, and the other one's the list that's going to get him to the future outcome that he wants. And he's toggling between these two lists. But it seems like the list on the right, the one from the future, isn't getting in. It's not getting in. It's not getting inside. It's not getting inside of his decisions. There's no penetration. Why? Well, after looking at it further, he wanted to, by being an owner, he was thinking, well, to do that, I have to eliminate certain things. What are the consequences of that? Oh, I have to delegate certain things. That's right. Well, I'm going to have to depend on other people. And I'm going to have to set up an environment that has more structure, more processes, so that I can not think so much about things, but, actions happen automatically. And so as we looked at those things, and I looked inside each one of them, and we proposed what the intention was, and then I looked at the way he was acting, there was a commitment that was very competitive, almost like a resisting force. It was like as if you were taking a moonshot with the shuttle, and the gravitational field of the Earth was so strong that it was pulling you back down. It was like a tractor beam, because his fear was so high that someone having his business in their hands was just too scary. Did they have all the standards that he had? Did they have the talent level that he depended on? Could they understand the real intricacies of the handoffs, the projects, when the relays would happen? Could the business be systematized? Could art be systematized? I mean, you can hear in his questions, you can hear a lot of resistance. So when he would describe his current reality, hey, I'm so busy. I'm almost so busy being busy. I'm too busy to get what could make me a lot less busy. That was the kind of the fundamental thing, is that you're so busy being busy that you're too busy to get to what makes you a lot less busy. So we tell ourselves a very necessary lie. I will be less busy later, instead of now. So I'll kick the can down the road. I'll justify my lie by being less busy later. And that's kind of the way we hide out. We hide out in this realm, this area of kind of tolerating the conflict. It's a safe zone where we're not really moving towards the change, but we're not really moving backwards toward the continuity of what we have. But we kind of fool ourselves. We play a little trick on ourselves and delude ourselves, deceive ourselves into believing that that thing is coming, but we almost treat it as if life cared more, like as if life was going to open up the sky and there would be more than 24 hours a day, and that would be awesome, and we would have an inpour of amazing margins of time, and that's it. The reason why that never works is that because we're fundamentally in a reactive orientation, we're trying to manage time. And manage time has the fundamental assumption that we have all these things to do. Maybe we can arrange it in a better way so that we can get to it all. Okay, let's go back to that. I have so much to do. Maybe there's a better way I can arrange it so that I can get to it all. Do you see the flaw in that? That's often kind of how we automatically come at things, is we say, well, if I can arrange it in a certain way, I can get to it all. There's a dishonesty in that. You will never get to it all. There's an endless inbox. You will never clean out your inbox. You will never get it all done. The reason I know that is that you could work in your business 24 hours a day, 168 hours a week if you wanted to. You could. You would never stop. There's plenty of things to do. There's an endless to-do list. You can create problems out of nothing. You can create things to do. And even if you were bored or idle, you'd find something to do because time is like a vacuum. Anything will rush to fill it. And that's the problem with time management, is that it doesn't address the deeper assumptions that are really at play that make us too busy to get to what could make us less busy. So we begin to realize first our own bluff, and we say, well, what are the real mental models? What are the constructs, the fears, the assumptions, the generalizations? I had a client in the financial services business that after looking more carefully underneath it all, his underlying assumption was that he had no time. So he's kind of walking forward with this assumption. And when we make an assumption, it's like a cognitive reflex. We have a confirmation bias. We look for things in our reality that are consistent with it, and we tend to neglect things that are inconsistent with it. So what would he tend to do? Even if he had an excess of time, even if free time were there for him to use, he wouldn't even notice it because he's so busy trying to be right instead of looking outside the window and kind of scrubbing the dirt off the window pane. He's got polluted thinking from his memory. See, we're imposing the past like a veneer or a slide projection on the present. When we look out from within our mental models, we impose it. And then we try to justify it in some way. And we say, oh, I've got so much to do. No, you don't. You're just hiding inside what your head's telling you. So what does he do? He wakes up to the fact that he's been believing he has no time, and he comes to the term that, look, we all have 24 hours. You can't control time, but you can control yourself. Time management is self-management, priority management. It's about what you do with the time you have. How do you move in a 24-hour period? It's dimensional. It's not linear. It's a dimension of time. It's like a box. It's a space. And you choose or not choose what takes up the space. And if you don't make the space a certain way, if you don't look at what you're doing with the space, whatever that is will do it for you. Whatever will come in is engineered like a vacuum to rush in, because whatever supply you give it is whatever the demand will be to rush and fill it. I remember this in college when I would decide on a report to create, and I'd say to a friend of mine, hey, I'm going to get that report done within the next 2 days. That's right. Everything that got me to do that report, it filled up the next 2 days. I didn't do anything else. It took me 2 days. But it was funny, when I said to myself, I'm going to get that report done in the next 4 hours, I actually got it done. How does that happen? Because demand rises to fill the time that we allocate. And if we allocate no time to things, then whatever demands will be there, it will rise to fill it. That's why setting annual goals really don't work. You'll give yourself an annual goal of creating this. You go into the first 12 weeks. Because you handle the things that are easiest to do and not the hardest to do, you go into the next 12 weeks with this tagged on. And then you kick the can down the field even more. Then it goes into quarter 3. By the time you get to the fourth quarter, you've already added on all these unfinished loose ends, all these open files that you have to close because you haven't gotten where you're supposed to be, because all the things that you weren't expecting rushed in, took precedence, and now you've kicked the can down the field. You're sitting there in December. You can't even be with your family. You can't take your free time. You're overwhelmed. You've got all these unfinished goals, and your confidence has gone to crap. So then you go into the next year, and you think, well, boy, this year's going to be the same. Wow, I'm going to set the same goals over and over and over again. And if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, it's pretty much the same outgrowth of the goals that you didn't finish. You keep setting unfinished goals. You don't get momentum upon the goals that you finish, rather. You're just continuously talking yourself into doing the goals again that you didn't get to, instead of looking at the real underlying structure that is neutralizing and outlawing and ambushing you to not finish, not execute. It's because of how you are setting up things. It's a reinforcing system. So the more that you have an unfinished goal, the more powerlessness that you intend to construct mentally, and the more that you live inside the powerlessness. And when you do that, you compose a strategy, which is to get lost in things that look like you can't get to anything else. Then your behavior is react and respond better to those things, and the consequences are you remain neutral. You stay in this sort of liminal circularity, what we call samsara, which is living on the wheel, where you're skimming from one thing to the next, and it's just almost, it's like it's just blur. I call it blur. Blur. It's just a bunch of blur. I'll get to it then. Oh, I need to extend the time frame. Well, I didn't get to it. Well, I lost on this one. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not about you. It's not about your identity. It's not about how good or bad you are. It's not about your worth. It has nothing to do with how successful or unsuccessful you are as a person. Look, you're a very flawed human being. But it's not a prerequisite for you to correct your own personal flaws to become a better person. Don't mix your ideals. Don't pollute the soup with that ingredient. This is not about getting yourself into a different level. It's not about your potential. This is not about willpower. None of that works. Self-improvement is an act of violence. You don't need to set yourself up and get better and try to self-improve. Don't do it. I know it doesn't work. I've tried it. I've coached it. It doesn't work because your focus is on yourself, not on the structures. When I say structure, I mean that you live from underlying structures. Think of structure in the movie like a narrative. That when we have a protagonist and an antagonist, and we know where the tendency for the plot to go, when that happens, we know the protagonist is going to be the hero, the antagonist is going to be the loser. One of them has to win. Neither one of them can win. Together, one of them has to win. So we have a hero in the story, and we have a persecutor, and we have a victim. And with that, we know where the path of least resistance in the plot is likely to go. The same thing in your life. You have a desire to change. You have a desire to act. So you decide on those things. But at the same time, you see potential risks. The risk of depending on other people, the risk of having a team, the risk of not knowing how, the risk of looking stupid, the risk of looking like a fool. Wow, a lot of us have so much pride that that's really hidden underneath this hideout of being so busy, is that we're afraid to try new things. We don't want to look stupid. And so we come back to the familiar, and then we reproduce things. Or we don't think we deserve what we want. I don't deserve it. I've got to be a different person in order for me to keep what I expect. So what do I have to do? I have to earn it. Oh, I have to go and make things super tough. Because if not that, I'm not tested. And if I don't test myself by creating a sickness, a challenge, some kind of obstacle, if I don't make it more impossible, then I'm not the person that I am supposed to be. And then we create all sorts of hurdles. I had a sales rep once, a coaching client, who constantly got her, of course, it seemed like it was not her, but why was her car breaking down all the time? Why was she getting herself sick and ill all the time? She always had colds. She always had the flu. Why? Because she was afraid to fail. She was afraid to confront her inadequacies. We are so afraid of ourselves. We will lie and lie and lie to ourselves more than anybody else. We're the biggest liar to ourselves, instead of coming true and honest with ourselves, because we feel that we have to accept ourselves as a way of deserving better things. We've linked our identity to the creative process. And then we come to this thing called managing things we have in our life, and it gets all weird. It gets polluted because we bring our identity to the scene. So one thing we can do is rid ourselves of our ideals. We can get our identity out of there, keep it outside, put it in the bleachers, be our own bouncer. When we focus on creating, we focus on creations we want to create. See, most of the stuff that you have that's sort of mosquitoing you and dropping in on you, look, the reality is you're not going to get to all of it. That's a really, really high awakening. That right there, realizing that you'd rather have a great life and have an inbox with a few complainers than have a real clean inbox and have no life at all, and living in the black and white business identity. That's what you are. You're just going to live as a business person. You're not that. You're a Technicolor person, and that would never make you happy. You have so much more in you to give life than just a business could ever occupy. You're not a machine. You're a human being. You have humanity. You're not a robot. You have sensibility, and you have creativity, and you have expression and responsibility and all these things that you can do. You can organize yourself to create what you want. But I guess that what you've been doing is reacting and responding. You really haven't to the true tested creating. You haven't done it. You haven't been creating. You haven't been bringing things into being that you choose to bring into being because they matter. Loving them and then choosing them and then acting on them. Love, choose, act. You've been reacting to something else. So what do we do then? How do we sort of line up this time in a dimensional way so that we can foster our creation? So let's say my creation, I'm an entrepreneur. Fundamentally, I want to have freedom. Seriously, I mean, if I talk to 1,000 entrepreneurs, they're not doing what they're doing for financial gain. They're doing what they're doing because they want freedom. That's why they're not employable. It's not because they want all this earning power. No, they get earnings to be able to buy their freedom. To them, money is time. All money is buying time, because they can use that money to invest in talent to help them and also take time off to enjoy life and make memories, the best investments ever. All money is time. They want freedom of their relationships. They want to be able to surround themselves with professional people, clients, personal relationships, emotional support, people that can put the kind of circle around them that offers themselves to the world in their very, very best. They want to create a context where communities around them have highest hopes for them to do their best work and to do what they do that really belongs to the world, which is your calling, your purpose. Your purpose is what you really say matters. You can have a sense of purpose, a direction. A direction is simply choosing what matters to you. It doesn't have to be something you go up to the mountain and get. It's not something you discover. It's not a sudden holy grail moment. It's not a quantum moment. Look, you've been living your purpose all along. You've just been doing it probably while you're asleep. Your purpose has been there. You just haven't really directly faced it. But now, as you're starting to realize that you're not immortal anymore, it's much more important. It's more vibrant. It's right at the top of the deck of life. Talk to anybody who's dying. Talk to anybody who has cancer, who's dying, who inevitably is going to lose their life. Oh, they'll tell you what matters right away. It's the most luminous moment in their life. Why? Because there's scarcity. Because death is something we have to live close to. Ask yourself, are you doing the things today, if this was your last day, are you doing the things that you would be doing? I'll bet you aren't. Are you doing the things today that you would write in your obituary? Tell yourself the truth. No. Really, take stock. Be fearless here. Why would you invest your life spirit in a compromise? Why would you just go along with something? Why would you do that? You're too talented. You have too much in you to give. And there's too many great needs in the world to just let yourself live in normalcy, of going along with the things, the pack, of going along with what the rules say, of going along. Why not take all the rules away? I'm not saying go out and do something to hurt people or act in ways that hurt society, but to be really true to what your heart's desires are. What does that offer you? I don't think it's happiness. See, I don't think happiness is what we're all after. I think we are trying to be more involved in life. What we really thirst for is to be pleasurably involved in life. We want to create things that matter at our very best. We want to take aim with our gifts. We want to set ourselves into a meaningful charge. We want to position our life gifts, our opportunities that lie inside us and outside of us, our assets, our relationships, our tools, our God-given gifts, our innovations, our ideas. And we want to set those into some way that other people cherish those, that depend on those. That's the natural order of belonging, of what you thirst for. What brings you into aliveness is what happens between you and other. You won't know the properties of who you are without having some kind of echo back to hit against, right? You can't live on a lone island and really feel it. You'll be living alone. You'll have a relationship with yourself, but you have relationships with you and the other, and something brings you into being a certain way. So constructing the way that you use the time you have isn't just the intentions you have, but it's the quality of connections that you make. You know, in fact, if you look back on it, some of your most productive moments weren't really putting that into any kind of scheme or box. It was just a conversation. It was the ability to let go and just talk about anything. It was a level of connection that you had that transcended the way you spent the time. You weren't worried about getting anywhere. You weren't going anywhere. You were just offering a present attention to it. You weren't operating from the past. You weren't trying to be superficially nice. You weren't in a costume party trying to paint yourself to be impressive. You were really tuned into the other human being. And you were looking through their eyes. And when you did that, you felt yourself. Isn't that paradoxical? That when you feel others, when you look through their eyes and hear the people talking, not just the words, not just them as an object, but really hear them empathically, boy, that's some of the best time that you'd say you had measured in your entire adventure in life, were probably those conversations. And can you imagine what it's really like to really feel attended to that way? How the other person feels like their time is being spent when you're really with them? When you say to them, look, I am with you. I'm here for you. And I know that you're suffering, but I'm here to help. And I'm here to tell you about things that I'm experiencing that are vulnerable for me. And I know you'll relate with them. It's like an original medicine. But we're all so caught up in getting places that we don't take time to reflect. And without reflection, we don't have any antidotes to changing our history. Did you just get that? That we're too busy being busy to do what makes us a lot less busy because we don't take time to think or plan? What we're really saying is to slow down and reflect. Because when we slow down and reflect, we actually look and anticipate. We see where we are. We check in with the moment. We check in with our abilities. We check in with our drives, our intentions, what matters to us, our values, those living things that have places to move and go. Instead of just staying in this superficial zone of just doing things, doing all the pseudo work and sort of handling these things, being hopeless doers. Or maybe we're living on Someday Island. We're just kicking the can down the road. Someday, 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 someday when I get less busy. Someday when it all clears up. Someday when things change. Someday when someone gives me the opportunity. What do you mean someday? Look, you're not entitled. There are no entitlement attitudes. Let's get it out of there. Let's get that thing. Let's clear it. Let's root canal that. There are no entitlements. You're not entitled to have life produce it for you. Why? Why? When you're entitled, does that help? No. Because, again, you're in a reactive response orientation. It's about being entitled. No, it's not. It's about personal responsibility. Your life as an artist with yourself, your future self. So what if you could connect with that future self and be an agent of it and look into your current life? And as that agent of the future comes in, that's like a rudder in the water. What the hell am I doing? What choices am I making? Am I for or against my outcome? What do I choose to create? Oh, no, JD, but wait, we're looking for a guarantee. Yeah. We're looking for some sort of guarantee that everything's going to be okay. We're trying to predict the future. We're trying to model. We're being good citizens. We're trying to make good, rational decisions. You know, we went to school for that. Yeah, we're trying to figure it all out. We're trying to use what we know as we go forward. We're trying to apply old existing models of what works, what doesn't. Because I know the way people are. I got stereotypes. Yeah, I got to read on them. And I got to be prepared. Oh boy, I got to get out my danger prevention kit. I got to be prepared. I got to put the parking brake on this one. You're laughing as I'm saying this because it's true. Because we all have that. We all have inner enemies. We have judgment. We have kind of hostile memory that causes us to distort what currently is going on. And then we live from it. And we have cynicism. We have hearts that are disconnected. We're hurt. We have injuries. We have regrets. We have people that have left us. We've had parents that have isolated us. We've had narcissistic people in our life. We've had difficult people in our life. Welcome to the curriculum of life. That's Earth School. You're going to have it all, man. You're going to have negatives, positives. But that doesn't mean you don't show up in the moment as a whole person. That doesn't mean you can't meet it. You don't need to be negative on negativity. That doesn't mean you can't take a place of rest in the middle of things and learn to put things in perspective. That doesn't mean you can't sort of make a place for those negative emotions and slow down and process them. That doesn't mean that you are disqualified to consider the larger ideas of your life, your spirituality, and what you want to do with this precious life that you have, or what you came for. Those larger canvassing questions that really, in the underlying way, put you on a certain path. That's your own truth. No one can tell you. No one has the answer, only you. And the answer isn't the final answer. What a vision isn't important. It's what a vision does to you. It's having some guiding idea of the future you'd like to create. But you're not mobilizing those aspirations because you're giving too much energy to the small. And you're getting caught. You're trapped. Your foot is getting caught in the door. You're getting netted in that. So multiply your time. Rather than manage your time, multiply your time. What does a time multiplier think like? What does a time multiplier do? They use their time very differently. They are very, very, very impatient because they give themselves permission to ignore things. And the reason why we have a hard time with this is that we are afraid to piss people off. We don't want to cause a ruckus. We don't want to cause people to be disillusioned, disappointed. We have an addiction to approval. So we don't want to upset the status quo because people will start looking at us a certain way. So what do? We hide in being busy. We hide. We hide. And then we say that we can't do it. We make the impossibilities true because we're living inside of our construct. And we say, well, I shouldn't even wish for it because it might not happen. We learned that at an early age. That's polluted. That's just a mental model. It's a belief. But the time multiplier, a multiplier of time, thinks about what decisions they're making today that will make less effort later. You know, the only effort that you need to make is the effort to make less effort. This is called the law of short reverse. It means the things that you do now will change the way things play out. Quarterbacks know this. They know that 3 or 4 steps more back is going to make the ball precise. If you bend down a foot more, you'll jump up 2 feet higher. Yeah. I remember scuba diving. We were beach diving. I used to teach scuba diving. It was in an earlier part of my life. And I used to teach divers how to beach dive on California beaches. And, of course, there's lots of surf. So I would say to them, the way to handle the waves, you got this tank on your back, and you're certainly displacing water. But if you take if you swish your fins back a little bit and then go with the wave, you put yourself forward 10 times more. It's like that. It's like a slingshot. If you pull it back a little further without snapping it, of course, you give the object more propulsion, more precision. It takes a more direct trajectory to where it's going. So you get it. It's called the law of short reverse. It's the way that slowing down actually affects the efficiency and the speed of what's next. And so this is a very scary thing because to slow down, you think you have to be accessible all the time, especially in the interconnected world. You see, you're on all the time. is you're glued to that cell phone. You've got to be answering email all the time. In fact, you've probably branded yourself as a professional of somebody who's available all the time. And you capitalized on that people say, oh, you're like Clint Eastwood. Boy, you can answer so fast. But what you've done, what they don't see behind the scenes is that how much consequence you've created of you're never quite present to anything. Conversations are always interfered with because you can't enter them. You're always on call. You're like a doctor at 2 a.m. that's always on call when the baby's going to be delivered. You got to go. You got to be somewhere. You're always somewhere else. And that way of being distracted makes you miss so many glories in your current life. And people around you are very affected by that, especially your children, because they know. And every time you do it, you're emotionally injuring them because they feel like they're not a priority to you. And it's not just that you just say, well, I'm sorry, I just can't. That's a choice you're making. You can. Anything can wait 24 hours, okay? There was no email 30 years ago, right? Hey, look, things got along fine. As to whether things in our lives have really improved by all this, I think the jury's still out on that. But we use it, and there are plenty of benefits. And so we want to balance that with something that you could be doing that really serves a way of changing the future. And I want you to think in terms of multiplier. And that multiplying thinking is you either eliminate what it is, you automate what it is, or you delegate what it is, but you decide what that is. You thin things out. Thinning is a multiplier. Thinning is thinning things that you either are dreaded doing or that you're not good at. Your motivation and your will are the two things on the line. If you just don't get better at something despite doing it over and over again, that's a clear sign that you're wasting your time trying to get better at it. And if you're spending your time on things that absolutely do not motivate you, they make you miserable, they make you want to get rid of your job, they make you not have any fun, let me just tell you, that will be a recipe for your enthusiasm to fade. Is that as you go along, you just do not like this. Why don't you just get a heads up here, get a wake-up call, have a reality check. Anything that you're putting off is something that should be delegated. Anything you're kicking the can down the field on is a delegated item, or eliminate it, don't do it. I kept kicking the can down the road on cleaning my garage, so I just eliminated it. I just hired someone. I delegated it. I had someone come out and just do it for me. Put it in a storage, do that. And then little by little, I took things about every month. I took about 10% of things, go in, take it out, throw it away, get rid of it, sell it. And ultimately, I brought it down to nothing. But I made a decision. Because you have open files out there. You have loose ends. You have books you've started you haven't finished. So you've got decisions that are out there. They're loose ends. They're open ends. Close them. You have tolerations, things you're putting up with that are draining you, that don't need to be tolerated anymore. Make a list. Start making an action plan. Put a date and time on when you're going to eliminate it. You have environments that surround you, habitats that you just no longer know that don't support you. You have emotional habitats. You have physical habitats. You have places where you are. You have lighting. You have physical spaces, things that do not align with where you're going or who you are that need to be altered. Do it. Multiply. Those are subtle changes that lead to massive leverage. Leverage means getting far greater output from the input. Time to value. What kind of time to value are you getting? What's going in? What are you getting out? If you're in your business and you delegated, let's say, 30 items in a year, oh man, look at your time to value the next year. You just got rid of 30 things that now you can redirect to doing better things that inspire you, that you're superior at. And what do you do when you're doing things that inspire you and you're superior? You get more valuable. You get more access to the things that you want to create and innovate. You get more productive. And other people depend on you. But see, when you keep perpetuating in this cycle of doing things, you're educating people, you're training people on what to depend on. I call it the excellence trap. If you get too successful at doing the things that you hate, watch out. You're going to go out, you're going to take the money, you're going to buy a big house, you're going to put your kids in the best schools, and you're not going to be able to get out of it. You're going to be prisoner of your own machine. You're going to be in such a ceiling of complexity that you're not going to know what to do. You're going to feel miserable, you're going to be depressed, and you're going to feel like you've been stumbled, you've been stifled, you've been shut down and filed down. That's right. It's very heart-killing. It's heart-killing when we create that level of existence. The way out is to start maneuvering out of the mentalities that we talked about and establishing some new structures, living in a more creative orientation, deciding the outcomes that you really, really want. Not the problems you're currently solving, but the outcomes you love enough to see exist. Look at the current reality of what you currently have. Write down where you currently are. Good, bad, ugly. Current reality is an acquired taste. What are you doing to make this constraint happen? What's the constraint gene that you're increasing? In your assumptions, the way you're looking at things, your behavior, your strategies. It's not time to be a time manager. You're not trying to pull it all together. It's counterbalance. You're trying to focus on the one or two things that will make everything else simple, everything else easier, everything else better, and that always involves multiplier time. You're a time multiplier. Doesn't mean you're doing everything. It means you're deciding on where to put your stuff. You're going to eliminate, automate, or you're going to delegate. It goes into the priority funnel. What comes out is something that has less weight. You thinned it. So what you think about here is if you're really going to go after more income, it means you should really be doing less. See, doing less is more. You'll find that to be true. If you're doing 3 things only, those 3 things are probably going to be the things that really build your business. They create the most value for others. They open up opportunities. They access conversations that you want to get to, which always open up doors. They lead to more creative time, more blue sky time, creative time. They allow you to think about long-term investments, where to put your money, big picture stuff. If you don't become an agent of the future now, then you're going to keep kicking the can down the road, and it's going to be too late. I'll never forget my grandmother on some of her last days. I was sitting with her in Montecito, California, at a home that she was in. She was 88 years old. And she said to me in her chair, I still have work to do. I still have music in me to play. I still have unfinished business. Man, did that strike me for the core. I still, to that day, I had chills. When I think about it, you should look at my arm. I have hair standing up. Do you ever want to be a person saying that? That, to me, brought up so much compassion for me in seeing her and seeing myself and feeling her pain, that she ran out of days. She couldn't mobilize her aspirations because she didn't have a temple, a life, a health. Her body could not do it. Physically, her heart was in failure. She was having congestive heart failure. She couldn't do it. It's only too late if you don't start now. Eliminating procrastination is not about eliminating procrastination. You will automatically outgrow procrastination. Things that don't matter, non-essentials in the continuum of what's relevant to what you want to create, will fall off naturally. You're not going to solve all the problems. You're not going to deal with the Bandini mountain of things you got to do. You're going to have to start making some choices. There will be opportunity costs. The word decide means to murder the alternative. You're going to make a choice, a full selection on what is important to you. So right now, write down the main accounts of your life. Open up an emotional account with your family. Open up a spiritual account with God. Open up a mental account with your focus. Open up a financial account with your personal finance. Open up a leisure account with your vacation time. Open up a business account with the content and the subject matter of what you want to create in your business. You know what your mission is, what your business does, who's your customer, all those goodies. This account will allow you to put very clear structures. Make you an agent of the future. Live a life plan, not just go with the flow. Sure, you're going to have successful accidents. You're going to have wise innocence too. Not everything's going to go as planned. But why not have an intention? When you do that, when you have an intention and you put it at the center of your awareness, when you walk with an intention, somehow certain synchronicities start to happen. This is the greatest way that time seems to work in our favor, is time seems to multiply by bringing into life certain people and certain moments and certain elements that are congruent with our intentions. I don't know why this is. I think it's because we just hold steady into the unknown by taking meaningful leaps of uncertainty. Is that we go into the black corridor and we have to keep walking. And instead of trying to use positive thinking to see an end that isn't there, instead of deluding ourselves with positive thinking, which is positive lying, it's about a real honesty with ourselves, about what's really going on, and also living into what we really want to create. And as we live in that zone of what we have now versus what we want, and that's including our stock of how we are, and what we like and don't, and what we're good at and what we're not, and whatever's relevant to what we want to create, we find ourselves getting better and better at the creative habit of living in the creative orientation, of living true to our aspirations, living boldly, courageously, living true to our ability to connect with others in the time that we want to use with them, to offer ourselves to listen to others, listen to the words that they say, but also be able to listen to the person saying them, get behind the words. To have those real moments, those moments of transcendence, where we know that there is no past or future, there's just the present moment, and that everything the future needs is being given to us in this moment as we live into our intentions and we stay true to our real thoughts about what is important to us, our values, our aspirations, and that it's just a choice away. It's not a bunch of moving the pieces around. Simplicity always starts with an internal hierarchy of importance. If you do it inside, you'll work from there to bring it outside. There'll be externalization, because now that'll be your replica. That will be your internal model. All things are created twice. As a creator, you have to create it inside your mind, and then you bring it into reality. But you focus on what you want to create, and then you bring those creations into being. And it's not about your weaknesses. You don't need to correct your flaws. You don't need to clean up your weaknesses. But you do need to know exactly what they are. In fact, the more you come by yourself honestly, the better and the more sense of urgency you will have about what you do need to delegate, what you do need to eliminate, what you do need to automate. That is a constructive thought. That's a constructive reality, a constructive perception of what you actually have in terms of what you don't have, what you don't know, what you lack, where you're soft, where you're stressed, those things, what you put off. That's making you resourceful. There's nothing to interpret about it. There's nothing to start making up about it. That's not a phantom. It's not a shadow. That's not bad news. It's not good news. It's just the news. It's good journalism. It's telling yourself the truth. And that when you make those steps upon what you don't know how to do, when you create separate from what you know, and you're courageous in those steps, you realize that as you take them, the only way to learn is through the action. That you have to act in order to get the knowledge. You can't just get the knowledge and then act, because there's never a situation you'll be prepared for well enough. Just start. Quit being ready to get ready to get ready to get ready. You'll never be ready enough. When Bill Gates put Windows out, Windows 95, had he waited 2 or 3 years, he would have lost to other market suppliers. Windows may have never come out because the timing window would have gotten skewed. But he thought, well, I'm going to put it out there. I'm just going to go for it. It had bugs, but his versions are what made it great. And the versions continued to perfect and optimize the product. It made it more and more valuable, and it made it forgivable. Because the instant action is the only way to learn. And the learner always wins. The learner has second chances. The learner is different than the performer. Let go of that hard ideal of you being a performer, of getting the good grade in the class, of getting it right the first time. It's not about perfectionism. You don't need that. That's not required for the course. You've got to let go of your security, your status. You've got to let go of your comfort to get through the threshold, to get to the next level. You will not be the same person when you get there. Trust me, you won't. You will not have the same level of character. But it's not about changing you first. If you behave and you change, you'll be changed by the behavior. Your rationale changes by the behavior you do. Do it and you'll be changed. You'll change your thinking by what you do. If you look back on your experiences, you know this is to be true. The experiences that you've done, the choices you've made, has changed the way that you think, the way that you are. But you won't really know what you have in you. You won't know the full spectrum of what you've got until you start living your dream, until you start putting your dreams first. A dream is different than a goal. A dream is a vision. It's a future picture. It's a lovely image of the future we seek to create. It activates and manifests our senses. It makes current reality a constructive ally. It helps us see what we have now and don't have now as a constructive starting point. See, without a place to go, there's real no environment or habitat for learning, because we learn by creating. In fact, it's the only way to learn. We learn from the future as it is emerging. We create it, but then we also look at what's going on. We look at where we are with it. And we pay attention, and we connect to others as we pay attention. And we set our intentions, and we renew ourselves. We restore ourselves. We galvanize our intentions as we go along. You will change your mind. Your values will shift. You will learn and unlearn. You will learn and unlearn, but you maintain your inexperience. That's because you're an aware human being. You're using awareness, and that being part of the key role in your creative process. If you're not aware, then you're not going to be using your time. See, if you're asleep, then you're not going to be multiplying your time, because you're not aware of what's important. You're not aware of what's going on. If you're not aware of what's important, you're not aware of what's going on, forget it. You're going to be a time waster. It's going to be a hopeless doer. You're going to ride right through life, skim peak to peak. You're going to get to the end. You're going to get out your report card, and you're going to say, regrets, regrets, regrets. I'll never forget a book that I read by Bronnie Ware, as an Australian paleo nurse who over 18 to 20 years had helped the dying in the last 3 weeks of their life. And she found by their comments the 5 most significant common regrets that they all had. Just want to take a guess at what those 5 are? I don't think I remember all 5, but I remember the first 3 because they were really, really resonant with me. The first one was, don't let up on your dreams. That these people felt that they had kicked the can down the road so often that they ran out of time. They just weren't impatient enough. In other words, they lowered their standards. They sold out. They sold their soul, and they kicked the can down the road so many times that they lost touch. They lost their courage. Don't do it. Second, don't work so hard. Is that we think work is part of our identity. We think work is going to give us an impressive lifestyle. But we need to live a fulfilling life. Impressive lifestyle doesn't last, but fulfilling lives do. Money doesn't make you happy, but it is helpful when you have it, for sure. But when it starts to make up an identity, when we start to marry money in a way that it defines who we are or what we do, or we are who we are by what we have, we truly are out of touch with our humanity. We're truly out of touch with our gifts. We're out of touch with our integrity. We're out of touch with our humility. Because that's just a hallucination. And if we're living that perception, it's because we're masking our true longing for connection. It's so easy to fall into being a consumer, to being entertained. And when we're consumers and entertained, we get ourselves into time wasters, into media, and looking at things that just keep us temporarily distracted because we're masking our longing for deep connection. But when we realize that connection is what we want to create, right in this moment we can make a fundamental shift, a shift of mind to pay attention to our connections. Not from our circumstances, but from our truest intentions that we want to connect. Tonight, you can go to a family get-together and completely change the experience. You can be in the conversations or not. You can be present or not. You can walk right through it, skim through it, and get out of there and not even remember it. It'll not even have an imprint on you. Or you can get involved. You can see what's there. You can eat a meal tonight, and you can eat your food and not even taste it. Or you can savor every bite. Put your silverware down. Eat consciously. Think about it. Be aware. Be aware. Be aware. See what is going on. Sense what is being felt and experienced by others. Pay attention. Take moments. Take sacred pauses in the day to pull back. Look at what you're doing. Put your periscope up. Connect with what matters. Are you paying regular visits to yourself? Are you coming home? Home, heart, home, core. You. What matters? Or are you just numb? Are you just living the unlived life? I'd be saddened if you were, because really you have something in you that you need to give to the world. And to be seen is by others seeing it. Other people, your community has high hopes for you. I do. And I think there are so many important contexts, socioeconomically, spiritually, emotionally. If we look at what's happening on the globe today, it's important that you understand that you can access a finer quality of being and an expression at every moment. And it has nothing to do with how unbusy or busy you are. It has to do with how aware you are. And that if you're all on that doing, if you're on the way going somewhere thinking it's all going to be great tomorrow, check out the moment. Arrive in the present moment. Stay here. Stay in what's happening. That doesn't mean that you're going to recreate the same. It just means that you're giving it that kind of wise attention, that relaxed attentiveness to what's going on, to let go. Because what you make space for can move. If you make space for what's here and you form an intention, then you can move away from the familiar and move toward the change work that you really need to be doing. Trust your gifts with your life. Trust your gifts with your life. Trust your gifts with your life. Make your intentions made of love. If you want more blessings in your life and you want to be usable to do great work, dream big. Because the higher you dream, the more impossible you dream, the more you're going to need help. Divine help, help from others who are brilliant at qualities that your future depends on. But don't just stay with the idea. Choose it. An idea is an idea, but choosing the future, declaring it, being captain of your own ship with certainty of destination is far different. Look, you'd be better at failing on something you're going to dream because you're going to fail anyway at things you're already doing. If you take risks and you're successful, because risks create opportunities, amen. And if you're not successful, you'll get an education. Because failure, you have to have successful failures. You have to experiment. You have to try new things. And when things don't work, it's not about whether you're a good or bad person. It's all about learning. You treat whether it works or doesn't work with equal value. Yeah, you'll delegate certain things that'll work. You'll eliminate things that'll bounce back. People will fail you. There'll be moments when things don't work. How many times have we had things that don't work? And so to it. So it is. It doesn't work. But that doesn't mean you put it all away. That means, no, you get charged. You get resourceful. And you say, okay, what do I do with this? I got new information I didn't have before. I plan it, I do it, I study it, and I act on newly modified information. I do it again. I build capacity. If you want to learn how to build a business, start one. You can't go to school. The only school there is to start. You learn by creating something. You learn by creating something. You learn by creating something. You begin separate from what you know. You keep your database where your database is. So this conversation, this talk, I hope has pushed some buttons in your heart. I hope I got into the fiber of your being and that you heard me not only in your head, but you heard me in your heart and you heard me in your soul. I hope that what I told you today or what I might have reflected on will enrich you and turn your toes in a certain direction to start living the lived life and play all the music in you to play. And to not be like my grandmother who said on her last days, I still have work to do. But to get to all the things that matter. To tell the people that you haven't been telling how much you love them and not waiting until their funerals. And to not work so hard, but to treat your free time like a productive metric. That the amount of relaxation you get is equal to the amount of production that you create. It always starts with free days. It always starts with having time off. Because those are the moments. Those are the moments to relax, add years to your life, connect with loved ones, and really feel that your business is not consuming you, but it is serving your life. You don't live to work. You work to live. Are you really living? Think right now 5 things that bring you into aliveness. Make a fantasy day. If you could start and finish it from morning to night, who would you be with? What would you be doing? Where would you be? What is indispensable to your happiness? How many of those things do you have in your life today, right now? And what could you do? What step? Start close in. What second step could you take to start bringing that into your life? Because I got news for you. If you get that into your life, you're going to have energy for the rest. What you're learning is that it's not about time management, it's energy management. When you manage your energy, you have to multiply your time. Because that's the only thing that makes your creativity endure, that keeps you alive, is that the future gets more simple, easy, and things become unnecessary and fall off to the rise of things that are more essential, more values-based, that mobilize your aspirations and help you really live your truth. So with that being said, I wish you in the highest hopes of being all that you are and bringing all that you are to all that you can do. And to, in those moments when you really are listening, when you pull back and you look at all those possibilities and you consider your dreams, that you truly choose the things that you would be proud of your life to do. And that when you find places of goodness around you, that you expand them. And that when you listen generously with your open heart and you empty out what you know and you stay in the moment and you look for connection and what has meaning and heart and what inspires you and touches you and moves you, that right there, you're knowing that things are actually coming together, that you are having meaning in your life and that there are things that are progressing because you're actually in contact with life, not just being busy. That's when you'll know. You'll know when people change you again. You'll know when something resonates with you and gets inside of you and you're not too busy, but you can stay with the cadence of that thing and grow it like a seed and build on it. That time is the advocate. It's not the adversary. Time is a mental construct that we make up of the world to avoid being controlled by it. Time is a mental construct of the world to avoid being controlled by it. Time is not that, but we think it is. Time is timeless. It has no beginning and it has no end. It is infinite. It is a field of vast possibilities. And when we are asleep, we don't tap into the streams, the emerging properties of what that time can be for us. Whether that be our future self, whether that be our highest possibilities, whether that be our calling or our purpose, or what work we have to do in the world that's waiting for us to answer. We just have to jump in. And I don't think there's ever a better time than now. Because there is no beginning and there is no end. It pretty much starts when you say so.